St.Peter's seminary sits on the edge of the Firth of Clyde. It's set among a semi-ancient woodland, at a point where two deep river gorges meet, and on a plinth of rock between them is where the baronial house and this remarkable 20th century form were sited. When you're there, you feel as if you're leaving the real world behind and stepping into this, what we would describe as an other landscape.
The first time I came, I remember when I walked up the gorge to see it, it looked like the Hoover Dam. These walls felt as if they went up forever. The sheer scale of it. You've got perhaps Lizzie Metzstein's mainstream modernism, the frame, banging into this more Scottish, curved, heavy outer wall, which was more of Andy's influence. But then by the time you get to the teaching block, this is the bit I always felt is the spaceship that landed. I can't think of another building that I've seen that looks like that.
One of the things about the way they did the building is not only locate it around the existing building, but actually if you think of the experience of the collectively and publicly perceived bit of the building, it does not touch the ground, except the heart and base of the church. So the priest arrives, as it were, is resurrected from the ground before he comes round to the Mass. It was absolute theatre, but it transcended its own theatricality to reinforce meaning.
The period when St. Peter's Kilmahew was built is one which many people have come to dislike. Brutalist architecture, they call it. But it's also, of course, a period which many people find very visually exciting. If you think about the fate of some other semi-ruined modernist buildings, like, for example, Battersea Power Station in London, which in its time was reviled and now is the centrepiece of the regeneration of the South Bank in London, I think we can see that people's ideas about buildings shift through time.
The building was constructed in 1966. It was designed by two young architects, Andy McMillan and Izzy Metzstein, who were the leading lights in Gillespie Kidcoya, a now renowned modernist architecture practice. It was built as a seminary to train young priests into the priesthood, and it was in operation till about 1980 when it fell into disuse and became a drug rehabilitation centre for about 2 years. Since then it has been lying vacant and exposed to the elements in part, and to vandalism and to fire setting, and is now in a very deteriorated state.
Izzy's view was that it should be allowed to be stripped back to its bones, to that which could not deteriorate further, in other words, its structure. Andy's view was that he thought that some of the more evocative NVA things had nothing to do with the original function of the building, but actually caught the spirit of its being.
NVA get the idea that the building is a ruin. They're not trying to evolve it into a fully restored building. They're almost stabilising it. As a builder, that's appealing to me because it seems like a good, sensible progression. But also what they're planning on doing with it, their intention to bring it to life through art is a really good one.
Part of NVA's philosophy is that you look at the whole. You don't just see this remarkable architectural icon and a background setting. You see it as part of a 500-year history across that site. So I'm very interested in how people journey through this wider landscape before arriving at this beating heart or jewel in the centre. From the north end, it will remain a consolidated ruin, and as you move through the building, it will slowly become more restored, so that the only fully restored element will be the floating glulam beams and lantern roof light that sits over the altar. The chapel will become our 600 capacity venue. It'll be a place where in indoor conditions we can present all manner of great public art. But we really hope that there'll be a strong experimental strand running through it, where artists from lots of different media respond to the building itself, respond to the inspiration of what that space does.
The period in the early 2000s when I kind of looked at this place quite intensely, I learned an unbelievable amount about how to get ideas and how to then manipulate them and turn them into work. This was almost like a kind of laboratory for that process for me.
It's a space that's so full of personality and textures and history. It's completely uncontrollable in so many ways, and that's why it's completely opposite to a white cube space. I think it's significantly more interesting to have a dialogue with a space that has as much personality and grit as St. Peter's does.
Well, I think the interesting thing is it's a very multifaceted project. On one level it's a heritage conservation plan to restore a modernist icon and bring it back into use. But it's also something which will impact a lot on the local people in terms of creating opportunities to get engaged in community food growing or in learning skills about building restoration as we restore the remainder of the building over a 10 or 20 year period beyond the initial works, and how that can impact upon their confidence, the community cohesion, I think is things that will unfurl as we explore the project as we go on.
There are great health benefits, I think, in walking in places like this. Great connections to the past as well. You can come inside, you can see all the lovely details and things in it, which is great.
My dad was the gardener here for about 5 or 6 years. He ran these 2 gardens by himself, 2 big walled garden spaces. All the framework for the greenhouse has fallen down. You can see the metal structures here.
I think it's fantastic that this place can be reborn. I love the grounds, I love the space, and I love the relationship between the two. I think anything that makes it accessible again has to be welcomed.
I think the momentum for this project is built up to an extent where this is the right opportunity, this is the right time to be able to do this. You know, you've got people engaged on it right now, and if you don't then take it to the next level, you lose that.
We are probably at a crucial point in the building's life. It does present a danger to the community, so something has to be done. And in a very brutal sense, the danger has to be removed, the environmental issue has to be remedied. And if we're going to do that by harnessing the building's beauty, strength of character, and reinvesting it with a purpose, that's the way to do it.
There's no story really like it. In the history of the 20th century, it covers a lot of bases. The decline of organised religion, the recycling of 20th century architecture, the amazing liminal period where filmmakers and young people and graffiti artists used it as their own canvas, through to this very dynamic but subtle intervention which sees the dereliction and sees the ruination as having currency.
I think what's exciting about NVA is that they've understood the special qualities of this building as a ruin, that they intend to preserve for the visitor that sense of excitement, of coming upon something which they would never have expected to see and never have expected to see in this state. And I do think that of all the projects that I know of, NVA's vision is something which is unique, poetic, and likely to succeed.